Welcome to House of Poetica. My name is Montoya Miller. I am a writer, I'm a hypnotherapist, I'm a coach. And today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics pretty much ever to talk about. And this is going to be working with different cycles and seasons, especially as it pertains to your creative life, to your creative process. So obviously we have 4 seasons, earth seasons, right? But we personally are constantly going through our own seasons, our own cycles, our own phases. We also have the phases of the moon. If you are a woman with a menstrual cycle, you have your own menstrual cycle that changes literally 4 times just within 1 month. If you don't have a menstrual cycle, you also have a circadian rhythm. So we all have some kind of natural internal body cycle, different seasons that we're going through internally within our physical bodies. And then we have these external seasons, these different phases of life that we go through, the seasons of the earth. And again, the different cycles of the cosmos, depending on where the moon is at, what's happening with the planets. So there are all of these internal and external forces at play that influence and affect how we feel and the energies around us and within us, and how we're moving through the world, what we're meant to be working with, working through, moving towards, clearing out, right? Like once you start to drop in and become more intentional and aware with the way that you live and show up in the world, and then also just show up within yourself, once you start to create that space to really get quiet and tune in and check in and say, where am I at right now? You start to realize that there are collective themes that we're all meant to be working through and things we're moving towards. And there are also your own personal themes in your own inner worlds that you're meant to be working with. So, having this awareness of these different seasons and cycles and how to begin tapping into them and working with these energies is such a powerful practice and way to live. It really is a way of being. It goes beyond just like a spiritual practice or meditative practice or whatever you want to call it, creative practice. It is, for me, the foundation of how I live, and it helps me to stay not just connected to myself but connected to the natural world, which I think is something that especially now we are so hungry for. Like, we are craving this connection back with the earth, back with the cosmos, the moon, as well as with our bodies. And it's all connected, right? Like, as above, so below, as within, so without. Everything is connected, everything influences each other. It is like one big ripple effect. We are not separate from the earth. We are of the earth. We are made up of cosmic dust, of dirt, soil, water, right? Like all of the elements. It's this. We are these like physical, tangible expressions of everything. And tuning into these cycles and these seasons is a way to not just live more intentionally, but to really set yourself up to be able to almost, I don't want to say like see the future, because no one can ever know what is going to happen, but it gives you this greater awareness of what's going on within the collective. Again, like what's coming up for you, what you're meant to be moving towards. So it's like this invisible thread guiding you along your path in a very intentional and beautiful way that is connected to the natural world. And when you're connected to the natural world, you can't go wrong. If we think about nature and how nature functions, there are no mistakes within nature. Nature, it never messes up, it never gets it wrong. Whatever nature does is exactly what needs to happen to balance something out, right? And so when we're connected to that rhythmic way of being, that cyclical way of living, you can't go wrong. You are going to be guided down the path that is uniquely meant for you. So it's not just a great way to live more intentionally, but it is this internal guidance system that you can use to make decisions, to feel into the moment and say, okay, what do I really need right now? How am I actually feeling? Where am I being guided? So it's this incredible compass almost. And when it comes to all my fellow creatives, whether you consider yourself an artist or just someone who likes to create, someone who likes to make shit, right? Or maybe even that putting that label on yourself of artist or creative, you're a little bit like, ooh, am I though? Like, I don't feel like I'm creative. I believe everyone is creative. I believe just it is human nature to create. And so you might not be an artist in the traditional sense where you're painting or writing or sculpting or whatever these uh, more traditional artistic mediums are. But I guarantee you, you have some gift within your life, and maybe you haven't fully tapped into it yet, but there's something within you that longs to create simply for the sake of creating. So I believe we're all creative. And for those people who really are devoted to living a creative life, tuning into these cycles and seasons and learning to work with them is such a beautiful, beautiful path to walk, because this can so positively impact and influence your creative process, your creative practice, your creative energy. I see so many artists and creative people just push and constantly be trying to create and put their work out into the world, and they burn themselves out because they aren't tuned in to not just their own internal cycles, but the cycles around them, the season that is actually taking place. Or it could be the other end of the spectrum where you've got all these ideas and you're never taking action. You're kind of like stuck in this winter phase when nothing is really happening, nothing's really picking up. You're not taking the action. So these different seasons that we experience, these different cycles that we all go through, each have a very different energy to them. And I can create some different content around, like the 4 seasons of the earth, working with moon cycles. If you have a menstrual cycle, working with your menstrual cycle, because I think you can do all of that. You can combine it all. You can pick one and start with that and see how that feels. But it's just going to be way too much to try to cover in this one episode, this one video. So I'm just going to do a brief overview of the 4 seasons, but I'm more than happy to break down working with the cycles of the moon as well as working with your menstrual cycle. All very, very powerful. But I think the simplest place to start is working with the 4 seasons. So I live in the Northern Hemisphere. So right now it is October. We are officially in fall, which is my favorite season. If you're in the Southern Hemisphere, you're currently in spring. So probably experiencing a different energy. But with fall, I'm going to speak from my perspective of being in the Northern Hemisphere because that's where I live right now. So when we enter fall, I think many of us feel this very tangible shift. I know I do. Every October, it's like clockwork, where something internal shifts within me and I go into hermit mode. I don't try to make it happen. Sometimes I don't want it to happen because I might have a bunch of things going on that I need to, finish up or be social or whatever. But something shifts. And so we can think about fall as this time of slowing down, right? It is the season before winter. It is this time where the days start to grow shorter. The night gets darker sooner. There's a chill in the air, depending on where you live. And we can feel that things are slowing down, they're quieting down. There is this shift from very loud, outgoing, bright summer energy, very active, fiery summer energy into this internal, reflective, quiet space. And that's how it feels. Like if you're watching the video of this, it's like this coming back into yourself after having your energy be very, very spread out everywhere during the summer. You're like doing all the things, you're being social, you're out and about, you're like being seen, you got your cute little summer dress on. And then fall comes and it's like this calling back of your energy. And fall is the time when the veil between our physical 3D world and the higher realms, the spirit realms, is thinnest. So if you are intuitive, if you are like tuned into energy, you probably have a lot of otherworldly experiences during this time of year. For me, I always have more like paranormal experiences. I'm much more sensitive to the energy around me. I have even crazier dreams than normal, and sort of like prophetic dreams where I get like ideas for things I'm meant to implement. I'm just much more tapped into my intuition and to this other realm that we can't see with our eyes. So when we enter this fall season, everything is guiding us to come back to ourselves and to get quiet. This is a season to go within. This is a season to sit with yourself. Now, look, this does not mean that you can't take action. You can't start something new. You can't be social. Because again, you have to remember that while we are all experiencing these collective seasons, we also are all experiencing our own personal seasons. So while it might be fall where you live, you might be in a summer season personally in your own internal world, right? So even though I'm feeling this like hermit energy and really wanting to get quiet and just kind of like cozy up with my books and spend a lot more time by myself and be reading and learning, studying different things rather than like going out and being with a bunch of friends and all that stuff, I'm still very much being called to start new projects and dive deeper into my creativity. So it's not like you just, nope, it's fall, can't take any action, right? You have to pay attention to your own personal season that you're in, as well as the external energies that are happening around you. And it's this beautiful dance with the two. That's where the magic really happens, is when you can tune into where you're at personally and then work with the external energies to almost propel you forward in the way that you need to be. But as we enter fall, we are collectively in this void space. That is what fall is all about. It is about this dark, quiet space where we are meant to just sit with ourselves and almost wait for the answers. And it is a time to slow down. We feel that shift because that is how we are wired to be operating. We are meant to live in tune with the cycles of the earth. So when the days get shorter and a little bit colder, we maybe start to spend more time curled up with a book rather than being out active doing whatever. And I think, especially in Western culture, it's important to reclaim working with the cycles of the earth because everything around us is encouraging us to just push past it, to ignore the natural cycles of the earth and always be productive, always be going, always be social. You're never doing enough, right? You can always be doing more. And one way to reclaim our power is to say, no, I'm going to listen to the season that I'm in right now personally, as well as the season of the earth. And I'm going to work with that energy. Because especially as artists and creatives, we can't constantly be pushing. We can't constantly be creating. Sometimes the best thing creatives can do for themselves for their creativity is to not create. If you're constantly creating, first of all, you're not resting, you're going to get burnt out. And you're not fully living either. If all you're ever doing is creating and putting work out there, you're not giving yourself the space to have actual experiences, to gather and integrate and gain that wisdom and create from that space. So, especially as artists, especially as creative people who are doing some kind of creative work, or maybe you just have a creative hobby that you really like to nurture, learning how to tune into the earth cycles and your own cycles and seasons is going to be so beneficial. So fall is really, it truly is the season of the witch. And it is this time of magic and intuition and personal and spiritual alchemy, of shadow work and getting quiet enough to hear within yourself what needs to be looked at. It is this beginning of the death cycle in our life, death, rebirth cycle that we all experience many times throughout our lives. And when I say death, that doesn't have to mean literal death, but so many of us are constantly going through death cycles, whether it's the death of a relationship, of a job, of a part of yourself, of a belief, of a behavior that you're ready to let go of. This life, death, rebirth cycle is inevitable. It's something that we all experience all the time. And I feel like, especially as a creative person, you are probably constantly going through this cycle, constantly burning down the old, burning down what isn't working for you anymore, killing off old parts of yourself, old identities that maybe weren't even truly you to begin with, but maybe it was this like projected self that you felt you had to be because your aunt Karen said so, or whoever, right? Something that you picked up during childhood. And so fall is this season of the subconscious, of diving into all of that. And really it's not so much a super active approach to shadow work, but again, it is this slowing down and creating space within your life, within yourself, getting quiet enough to simply hear what is bubbling up, what has been trying to get your attention. So there's not necessarily anything you have to do. This is not the season of doing necessarily. It's more about slowing down. And then we move into winter, which is the death cycle, right? If you think about winter in the earth, how we experience this in many parts of the world, winter is cold. The plants have died, the trees don't have any leaves. There's not a whole lot of life. But there is the promise of rebirth. But to reach that rebirth, you have to fully go into the death cycle, into that void space. And you have to let whatever needs to die, die, so that there's room for the new to come in. If we're constantly clinging to the old, to these patterns and ways of being and people and careers and whatever the case may be, these things that really are not serving us and helping us move forward in the way that we want to, if we're clinging on for dear life, we're not creating the space for anything new to come in. And so fall and winter are both the void space. And I think one of the scariest parts of being in that void space is having to let go, having to let things die without yet knowing what is coming to take its place. But fall and winter, these are the seasons to do that work. And especially winter, it is a time of rest. It is a time of getting quiet with yourself, nurturing your physical body, really taking care of yourself, resting deeply, so that when spring rolls around, which is the rebirth season, right? It's all about new life, beginnings, this sense of renewal and rejuvenation. The flowers are blooming, the leaves are back on the trees, the sun starts to come out, the days are getting a little bit longer. There is this new, fresh energy. And so we're guided to take all that was excavated during the fall and the winter, all that was cleared out, all that was learned, all the wisdom and the magic that you integrated. And from that new perspective, that new point of view or way of being, we can then be born again into whoever we are now meant to be. And it might look really different from who you used to be. So spring is this revival. And then we go into summer, which is this beautiful, bright, bold, a very active energy, very masculine energy. And I don't mean masculine as in like man or woman, but it's an energy. So it is active, it is outgoing, it is about taking up space, doing the thing that you said you were going to do, showing up, putting yourself out there and saying like, hey, this is me, I'm here, right? Being social, like just getting out there, doing your thing, having fun, letting it be carefree and easy. There's not quite the same heaviness in the air as fall and winter, where it is about doing that deep internal alchemical work. It's like, this is the celebration. So we can see how just in these 4 different seasons that we experience with the earth, there are so many different energies to work with throughout the year to tap into. And then we each have our own internal seasons that we're going through. So again, like it might be winter where you live, but you might be going through a spring season. And so how can you weave those together? How can they actually support each other? It's when we resist the season we're in that we then feel drained, burnt out, stressed, anxious, irritable, stuck. It's when you can actually tune into, where am I actually at? How can I not just work with where I'm at, but also work with these energies around me to support me? That is when you break through to the other side. So that is just a very brief overview of the 4 Earth seasons and how we can work with them and why it's so important, especially as people who are creating all the time, to begin making this a regular practice, making this the foundation for your life if it resonates. I think so many of us are being called back to the old ways, and that is something that I feel so strongly about and that I'm really here to inspire and be a voice for. My lineage is very much Celtic and pagan, and I've always been drawn to those practices, even as a child, just intuitively, and never really knew why. But as I've gotten older and been able to dig into my ancestry and see that my lineage, it's made up of people who have been practicing this earth wisdom for centuries, and it all makes sense. And I feel, as someone who lives this way and feels so strongly about this, it is part of my responsibility to share this with the world, because I think we're becoming so disconnected from the earth and from ourselves. And that's exactly what the people in power want. Because when we're disconnected from these natural rhythms and from ourselves, from our power, from our truth, we're much more easy to control. We're much more willing to do what these other people in power say without really thinking about it, without really questioning it. So, living in tune with your cycles, with the seasons of the earth, is a way to reclaim your sovereignty. That is what I'm fucking here to do. That is what I care about first and foremost. And my platform, House of Poetica, the work that I do is deeply rooted in liberation, inspiring liberation through creative reclamation, through saying yes to your unique purpose, saying yes to your creative expression. And a huge part of that is living in tune with the earth, living in tune with your own internal world. That is where this creative energy comes from. That is how you tap into your own inspiration. That's how you tap into your intuitive intelligence. That is the only thing that can guide you on your path. So, like I said before, this is not just a practice, this is a way of being, of living. And for me, it is the most powerful way that I've found, and it's what resonates really deeply. So I'll wrap it up there. If you have any questions, please feel free. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment. If you're listening to the podcast, all my links will be in the show notes. So I'll make it very easy for you to get in touch with me. But I love talking about this, if you can't tell. So if you want me to go into more depth on anything, if you want me to do an episode on, again, like the moon phases, the menstrual cycle, any of that stuff, let me know. I'm more than happy to share. I might do it anyways, just because I fucking love talking about this stuff. So that is all for now. I so appreciate you being here, taking the time to tune into my message, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks again. Bye.